I found myself trapped in a humiliating ordeal when my PE teacher demands I do 100 jumping jacks even if I'm on a wheelchair. Little did I know, this encounter would ignite a journey of empowerment and resilience. Here's how it all went down. So, there I was, sitting in my wheelchair in the middle of the gym, surrounded by the sounds of my classmates getting ready for PE class. I've been in a wheelchair since I was a kid, due to a car accident that left me with limited use of my legs. It's something I've learned to live with, but it doesn't make situations like these any less awkward. Karen, our overly enthusiastic PE teacher, was at the front, her whistle ready to go. All right, everyone. Today's challenge is 100 jumping jacks. Let's get those legs moving and hearts pumping, she announced, her voice echoing through the gym. I glanced around, feeling a sense of unease. I knew I had to speak up. Karen? I called out, trying to catch her attention. Yes, what is it? She responded, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. I can't do jumping jacks. I'm in a wheelchair, I said, my voice steady but a bit hesitant. She paused for a moment, looking at me as if I had just suggested we cancel PE forever. Well, just because you're in a wheelchair doesn't mean you get special treatment in my class. Move your arms or something. You can still participate, she said, her tone dismissive. I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment as I started moving my arms, trying to mimic the jumping jacks the best I could. I could feel the eyes of my classmates on me, and I wished I could just disappear. Karen, however, seemed completely unfazed. Come on, put some energy into it. You're not even trying, she shouted, her voice rising above the noise. I stopped, my arms dropping to my sides. Karen, this is ridiculous. I can't do jumping jacks, and yelling at me isn't going to change that. She glared at me, her eyes narrowing. You know, this generation is so entitled. You all want everything handed to you. Well, that's not how the real world works, she said, her voice filled with frustration. I was stunned, not just by her words, but by the fact that she was saying them in front of the entire class. I felt a lump form in my throat as I wheeled myself to the side, watching as my classmates continued with the exercise. The rest of the class was a blur, and by the time the bell rang, I was more than ready to leave. I couldn't believe how Karen had treated me, and I was determined to do something about it. The next day, I went to the principal's office and explained what had happened. To my surprise, he was very understanding and promised to talk to Karen about making her classes more inclusive. Over the next few weeks, things started to change. Karen was clearly not happy about having to modify her classes, but she did it. She started including activities that everyone could participate in, even if she did so begrudgingly. My classmates started to stand up for me too. They made sure I was included in everything and didn't let Karen's stubbornness get in the way of our fun. As the school year went on, Karen's attitude slowly started to change. She wasn't exactly friendly, but she stopped making snide comments and started treating me like the rest of the class. By the end of the year, I had learned a valuable lesson about standing up for myself and the power of collective action. Karen may not have become the world's most understanding PE teacher, but she had learned that she couldn't get away with excluding someone just because they were different. And me? I had learned that I was stronger than I thought and that my voice mattered. So, in the end, I guess you could say that Karen's crazy demand and her accusations of entitlement turned out to be a good thing. It showed me that I had the power to create change even in the face of stubbornness and ignorance, and that's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Wow, what an inspiring story. It's incredible to see how this person faced adversity and stood up for themselves. Karen clearly needed a lesson in empathy and inclusivity. Kudos to the principal for taking action, and to the classmates for supporting their fellow student. This is a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference. I never thought it would come to this. The chaos and destruction caused by my stepdaughter's entitled boyfriend, whom I aptly call Wreck-It Ralph, have left us homeless, carless, and adrift. Little did I know that our lives would take such a dark turn. Here's how it all went down. I call my stepdaughter's entitled boyfriend Wreck-It Ralph. No relation to the trademark cartoon, just coincidental naming. He has a tendency to break, ruin, or tear up everything he touches. My stepdaughter, who is actually a sweet and endearing young woman whom I love dearly, has, like many young women with self-esteem issues, allowed herself to be led astray by Wreck-It Ralph. In the year they've been together, she's lost everything. But at 23, she is old enough to learn her lessons without us parents coming to her rescue until she gets rid of Wreck-It Ralph and gets back on track. When they first got together, they lived with her dad and myself for a few months. It very quickly became apparent that Wreck-It Ralph had a chip on his shoulder when it came to me. He would carry tales to my husband, causing us to argue, despite my husband telling Wreck-It Ralph many times that it was my house and everything in it was mine. Wreck-It. Ralph would keep asking my husband, not me, if he could have this or that, and that's if he asked. He kept getting more and more animals, despite us telling him no more. Neither of them were taking care of the ones they had. They were not buying dog or cat food or cat litter. That was our responsibility, as my husband and I were taking care of it. They were not taking care of the messes, nor were they training the animals, which resulted in them damaging our belongings. In our state, marijuana is legal, and there is a dispensary in our town. The only work these two individuals were doing was door delivery, her job with a daily payout, solely to earn enough money for Wreck-It Ralph to make a daily purchase at the dispensary and eat at fast food restaurants. Wreck-It. Ralph's animosity towards me was evident when they brought my husband a soda one night, walking right past me through the back door and loudly calling out, "We got you, your favorite soft drink," to my husband in the living room, completely disregarding my presence. Another instance was when my stepdaughter asked if she could use my debit card to buy drinks for the four of us at a local convenience store on a hot day, when my husband and I were busy unloading things from the truck and trailer in the backyard. This request was not a problem. However, upon checking my account, I discovered that they had spent $20 on food for Wreck-It Ralph without asking for permission. The breaking point came when I informed them that they needed to replace the bedroom door that their dog had chewed the bottom of, and that I would not allow the pit bull mix they wanted to rescue, despite its history of biting, to enter my home. They then moved to my stepdaughter's mother's home. During their time there, my stepdaughter kept getting tickets in her car, which is only registered to my husband. They weren't paying their insurance, which I had bought my stepdaughter her own policy and paid the startup out of my money when they lived with us, and didn't pay the plate renewal. Now her license is suspended, and it cost my husband and me $600 to get the plates, again in his name only, unsuspended. Plus, they had damaged the car, and it needed repairs, so he took it from them. Before her license was suspended, but after the police took the plates from her car, my husband let her use his truck, which was on my insurance policy. Wreck-It. Ralph drove it, and he has no license and blew the motor in it. It is now sitting and can't be used. I told my husband I would put the car on my insurance for him, but only if he drove it. If he returned it to them, I was canceling the insurance, which I've stood by. Nevertheless, Wreck-It. Ralph called daily, demanding my husband return the car to them once it was legal and fixed. After 3 weeks, my husband finally said, "Look, you jerk, I don't know what it is that you think you're trying to accomplish here, but you're not demanding anything from me, and you're not getting the car back. I may have originally bought it for her before she got with you, but it is my car in my name, and I'm keeping it in lieu of the truck you ruined. Don't call me again about the car. Got it?" We had been hearing about ongoing disputes between my husband's ex and Wreck-It Ralph, WIR. The situation got so bad that Wreck-It Ralph told my husband's ex-wife to pack her stuff and get out of her own home. On another occasion, he told her to shut up and remember who she's talking to. As a result, we all agreed that it was time to let our daughter hit rock bottom. She wasn't seeing how Wreck-It Ralph had transformed her from a sweet, lovable, well-liked, and responsible girl in a college nursing program to someone with a criminal history and no current prospects. My husband's ex-wife moved in with her boyfriend and turned off the power at the home she had been renting. She even told her former landlord, who she had been longtime friends with, that it wouldn't affect their friendship if he evicted them for squatting since neither of them were on her lease in the first place. When my stepdaughter called wanting to come back, my husband allowed her to, but not Wreck-It Ralph. Now they are staying at a homeless shelter in the town where Wreck-It Ralph's mom lives, and even she won't let them live with her. It's heartbreaking to see her go through this, but this entitled Wreck-It Ralph that she won't let go of has really brought her down. She can do so much better. This guy once told us that he couldn't work at a factory he interviewed at because it was climate controlled and his heart condition won't allow that. Then he argued with me and my husband that climate controlled meant controlled by the climate, so it would be hot in the summer and cold in the winter. We haven't seen him hold a job or do anything useful and productive since they've been together. He just demands from and uses the people who love the girl he's become attached to. Well, we are making progress anyway. My stepdaughter recently had court in a town 30 miles west of us. They are staying just across the state line in a small city 30 miles east of us. So my husband and I devised a plan to get her a loan from him. We said the only car running was the 2-seat convertible and could only take her for her court appearance. My husband picked her up, then I took her to her court appearance as my husband had to be at the house for something. On the way, she started talking about how she wanted to break up with Wreck-It Ralph, but was afraid of the hurt that comes with it. She hated how controlling and untruthful he was, but felt he truly loved her, and didn't know if the negative behavior was simply from their stressful circumstances. She said once he got SR-22 insurance and his license back, things would be better. I pulled over, pulled out my phone, and went to the court file website for the county north of us, where Wreck-It Ralph used to live. I pulled up 6 cases in his name, 3 related to driving with multiple citations in each. The most recent case involved speeding, running a stop sign, hitting a woman, fleeing the scene, having a suspended license and registration, and obviously no insurance. He was arrested later and had to post bond. In that case, he had $4,000 in fines. Plus, we had received a letter at our house from the state stating he owed $11,000 in restitution to the woman for damages, and that his license was permanently suspended until the restitution. Any related court-imposed fines and state-imposed reinstatement fee were paid, along with proof of SR-22, within 48 hours of the release of suspension by the state. My husband accidentally opened it. It arrived in a stack of other mail, and he didn't look at the addressee. She was deflated and angry, stating they had talked at length, and he never told her any of that, only that he needed SR-22 because he got caught driving without insurance and had to have it before he could get his license back. As someone who used to have my own insurance sales license, I told her, no, you can't get insurance if your license is suspended or revoked, at least not in our state. He would have to get his license valid, then get insurance for mandated SR-22 reporting. She herself ended up on probation for her driving issues related to him, with a 6-month suspension and $750 in fines. Lucky break from the judge, in all honesty. She too will have to have SR-22 once her suspension is over. Afterwards, while I stopped at the store to get stuff for supper, Wreck-It, Ralph kept calling and demanding she come back. Despite plans to have supper with her that evening, she ultimately gave in to the relentless calls and asked her dad to take her back before I could cook. I did verify that yes, she has an intrauterine device, IUD, for those who inquired. She was very unhappy with her situation and beginning to see him for what he is and how, in the year they've been together, he has brought her down. However, she's not quite at the point of leaving him, but hopefully, with any luck, she'll be calling to come home soon. She knows she has a place here with us, but he doesn't. The daughter really needs to seek help and leave that guy, otherwise she will completely lose control of her life. It's crucial for her to surround herself with a supportive and caring environment that encourages growth and independence. It may be tough, but with the right support system, she can break free from the chaos and reclaim her future. I never thought a simple family gathering would lead to such a heated confrontation. As the tension filled the room, I couldn't hold back my frustration any longer. With those words hanging in the air, I knew I had crossed a line. Here's how it all went down. My older brother has quite the bustling household, with a mix of stepchildren and biological kids all under one roof. His wife Tori brought 2 kids into the marriage from her previous relationship. And then there's Liam, a 15-year-old from a brief fling, and another child from a long-term relationship. My brother also has a daughter of his own. From our conversations, it seems like Liam is the only one without a dad in the picture, and he's also the one who lives with them full-time, while my biological niece spends most of her time with her mom. I initially thought that Liam, being around all the time, would naturally receive a fair share of attention. However, my niece shared some insights that painted a different picture. She mentioned that Tori once referred to Liam as the extra, and not as adorable as her other kids, brushing it off as a joke. Fast forward to a recent family dinner at their place, Tori decided it was the perfect moment to share some big news. She clinked her glass, signaling for everyone's attention, and with a beaming smile she announced, "We're expecting!" The room instantly filled with cheers and congratulations, and I found myself caught up in the excitement, clapping along with the rest. But amidst the joy, I couldn't help but notice Liam standing at the edge of the crowd, tears welling up in his eyes as he quietly slipped away. Concerned, my niece and I exchanged glances before deciding to follow him out of the room. Finding him in a quieter corner of the house, I gently asked, "Hey Liam, is everything okay?" The floodgates opened, and he broke down, sobbing into my arms. My heart ached for him. My niece, ever the compassionate one, softly suggested, "How about we go grab some ice cream, Liam? It might help take your mind off things." Grateful for her kindness, he nodded, and they headed out, leaving me to return to the party, my mind heavy with concern. Back in the living room, the atmosphere was still buzzing with excitement. I noticed my brother deep in conversation with one of our nephews, a son of our other sibling. Curiosity piqued, I decided to join them, catching the tail end of their conversation. "Yeah, I didn't make the team this year," the nephew was saying, a hint of disappointment in his voice. "Oh man, that's tough. But hey, there's always next time, right?" my brother responded, trying to lift his spirits. "True, but you know what's cool? Liam made the team," the nephew added, his tone brightening. My brother looked genuinely surprised, his eyebrows shooting up. Liam? Really? I had no idea he was even into that. I always thought he was more of the quiet, nerdy type. The nephew laughed, shaking his head. Nah, uncle, you've got it all wrong. Liam's actually super popular at school. He's really good at the sport, too. I could see the confusion on my brother's face as he tried to reconcile this new information with his previous assumptions about Liam. It was clear he had a lot to learn about his stepson, and I hoped this revelation would be a step in the right direction. After their chat, my brother came over to me, slightly puzzled, and said, maybe the nephew got it wrong. Liam isn't really like that. I asked him to elaborate, and he admitted that he doesn't really talk to Liam much, but according to Tori, Liam is socially awkward, sensitive, and a bit clingy. Right on cue, Tori chimed in, Liam, is he bothering you? Just run away next time. He can be such a leech. I was taken aback, especially after witnessing Liam's vulnerability earlier. I couldn't hold back and told them both off, saying they should be ashamed of themselves. I even told Tori that if she didn't want clingy kids, she should have kept her legs closed. Unsurprisingly, I was shown the door, and Tori has been sending me angry messages ever since, accusing me of rudeness and ignorance. Even my mom gave me an earful, but despite all that, I stand by what I said. They're not treating Liam right, and it's just not okay. So am I jerk here? To clarify, Tori has 4 kids in total. The 2 oldest share the same father, who is very much present in their lives. Liam's dad, on the other hand, is nowhere to be found, and the 4th child has a different dad, who is also involved. My niece and the new baby, shared between my brother and Tori, bring the total kid count to 6. And just to be clear, I'm not letting my brother off the hook. I think he's just as much in the wrong, especially for not taking the time to understand and connect with his stepson. My main issue with Tori stems from her continuous negative talk about her own son, which is why I confronted her directly. It appears that Liam may have had more needs as a younger child, such as being hungry, cold, or having ill-fitting shoes, which his sister-in-law had to address. However, it seems that over time, Liam may have shut down emotionally due to a learned helplessness, believing that he won't receive the support he needs from his mom. In this situation, they should support to Liam by being there for him and inquiring about his teams or competitions. They can ensure that he has the necessary support and resources. It may also be beneficial for the OP to have a conversation with her brother regarding Liam's situation. I never expected my marriage to unravel like this. From doubts about our daughter's paternity to hidden family secrets, the truth shattered our once happy home. Now, as I prepare to walk away, I reflect on the twists and turns that led me to this moment. Here's how it all went down. My soon-to-be ex-husband, Eric, 40 years old, and I, 38 years old, were high school sweethearts, and we grew up in a small town where the majority of the population was white. Eric is white, and although I do not have the typical appearance of a white woman, I have enough features that I could be considered white passing. I recently discovered I'm of mixed race, which is important later. Eric and I got married after I graduated from high school. I became pregnant when I was 26 and had fraternal twins, now 12, named EJ and Natalie. As the twins grew older, EJ started to resemble Eric with his curly blonde hair and fair skin, while Natalie started to resemble me with her dark wavy hair. However, her skin would get darker, as if she had a permanent tan. Eric and I were confused by this because no one in our families had a similar skin complexion. After college, Eric pursued a career in law enforcement, and we eventually settled into a routine with our twin kids, EJ and Natalie. When the kids were 7, Eric got an opportunity for a promotion, which required us to move to the city. It was a big change for us, but we were excited for this new chapter in our lives. As time went on, I started noticing that Eric would occasionally make prejudiced comments about certain communities. I tried to shrug them off, telling myself they weren't overtly offensive, but deep down I knew it wasn't right. One day, while at a gathering with Eric's co-workers, one of them took a glance at a family photo and casually asked, "Is Natalie adopted? She seems to have African-American features." He even went as far as to suggest that maybe I had an affair after conceiving EJ, hinting at the possibility of the twins having different fathers. I was taken aback, but I laughed it off, not wanting to cause a scene. However, the seed of doubt had been planted in Eric's mind. By the time the twins turned 11, he couldn't hold back his doubts any longer. One evening, he sat me down and said, "We need to talk. I want a paternity test for Natalie." His voice was firm, and I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. I was hurt, but I agreed, hoping that the test would put his doubts to rest. When the results came back confirming that Eric was indeed Natalie's father, I thought we could move on. But I noticed a change in Eric. He became distant towards Natalie, and it broke my heart. One day, my phone died while I was in the middle of looking up a recipe for dinner, so I grabbed Eric's phone to continue my search. That's when I stumbled upon a support forum where Eric had been venting his thoughts. He was convinced that I had been unfaithful, made derogatory comments about black people, and even suggested that I had somehow tampered with the DNA test results. I was livid. Confronting Eric, I demanded an explanation. He looked me in the eyes and said, "There's just no way Natalie can be mine. We need another paternity test." Exhausted and frustrated, I agreed, hoping that this would finally put an end to his doubts. When the results came back, once again confirming Eric as Natalie's father, I was at a loss. That's when I decided to contact my parents, desperate for answers. We danced around the topic for a while until my mom finally broke down and confessed. "Your dad is not your biological father," she said, her voice filled with regret. "Your real dad was biracial." She showed me an old picture of him, and at first glance he looked white, but as I stared longer, I could see his African-American features. It turned out I hadn't inherited those genes, but Natalie had. The revelation was shocking, but it also brought a sense of relief. I finally had answers, and I hoped that this would help Eric see that his doubts were unfounded and that he needed to change his attitude, not just for Natalie's sake, but for the sake of our entire family. This seemed to appease Eric, but I could not forget the comments Eric made about black people and told him I wanted a divorce. He apologized and said he couldn't understand at the time, but I told him it was disgusting that that was what he thought about that community, and I refused to raise my children in an environment that fostered and normalized negative thoughts about any community. Eric and my parents tried to get me to rethink my decision and to go to counseling. I agreed to go to counseling, but I am not changing my mind about divorcing him. I wanted to clarify some things first. I'm not sure what you guys mean by my mom lied to me. While she never outright told me that someone else was my biological dad, I never questioned it, so it never came up. She told me she would tell me the truth if I ever asked. And everyone, my grandparents and dad, knew and agreed to tell me the truth if I asked. Not all prejudice is negative, guys. The prejudicial comments my husband made were saying a kid would be great on track after seeing them run, and they happened to be black, or that a kid would be a good businessman one day, and they were Middle Eastern. It didn't mean anything to me at the time due to my cultural ignorance. With that, my husband gave me no indication that he had certain feelings against other communities. So stop with the, "You were okay with him being racist until it was you." When I mentioned that he was distant with Natalie, I didn't mean to imply that he treated her poorly. He simply felt disconnected because he had doubts about her being his biological child, which affected his level of affection towards her. However, they still had interactions. My husband found out about the Reddit post and was mortified because he didn't realize how his behavior made him look. He also says he appreciates the comments that cut him some slack. Anyways, he booked a session with a counselor at his job, found out that cops have on-site therapists for us to go to. We got straight into the issue. The counselor asked why the comments bothered me so much, and I told her that I've seen so many innocent people suffer from hatred for something they didn't do, and how it makes people act way out of character. The degrading and harmful things people would do and say to others based on a characteristic they can't control, and treat them like they were less than human. My husband asked if he thinks he hates me and the kids. I told him I don't know. When it was his turn, he confessed to having an inferiority complex to black men, about how he thought black people were more physically attractive and gifted, and that the girls would have crushes on the black boys. How it hurt that none of the girls would look at them, the white boys. So the boys looked for compensating factors that would make them more desirable. Having money, getting careers, not being involved in illegal activity, etc. And it turned into this ugly thing of why like him when I have this. I was floored. I asked him if he was like this when we met, and he said yes, but that I never triggered his insecurities because I didn't pay attention to them or talk to them, but it was always in the back of his head. He was worried I would leave him for them, so he started working out, playing sports, and buying cologne to keep up with them. The counselor asked about the comments, and he said that he was looking for validation of his feelings as far as being good enough. When he considered the thought of me cheating, he couldn't understand how I could choose a menace to society over him that has provided for his family and given us a home. I was numb because I didn't think he felt this way. I told Eric that I want him to write a detailed, heartfelt apology letter to the community he offended. He is not to tell me what it says or show me, but to write it and then post it anonymously. If strangers can forgive him and push him forward to help be better, then I can too. After getting home, Eric wrote the letter, then posted it after proofreading it again and again. He's currently waiting for the comments, and in all honesty, it was enough to make me reconsider divorcing him. He's not off scot-free, but I really appreciate his effort. If anything significant happens, I'll update again. This will be the final update because I'm done. The good news is, you guys were right, and I was a jerk for believing my husband. I am relieved that racism isn't tolerated or accepted by the majority despite what you may think. After my husband wrote this apology letter, he received support from people telling him that they were proud he was able to admit his racism and that he was willing to change. I was willing to work through this, seeing that other people could forgive him, and so on. A day or two later, I was using our iPad and received a notification for a text from Mom. I looked at it and didn't recognize the conversation until I realized it wasn't my mom, it was my mother-in-law. I'm assuming my husband forgot to sign out of his Apple ID, so it was linked to his account. I read the text that my mother-in-law was disappointed that I and my kids happened to be of African-American descent, and that she didn't expect this for her family, but that we were tricked, and we are one of the good ones. My husband said he couldn't believe it either, but it's not my fault my mother lied about having relations with someone of African-American descent, and that he was going to make sure our kids don't become one of the bad ones always on the news. My husband still maintained his negative attitudes, as I previously posted in other texts with his mother. I realized there was no hope for him to change, so I am leaving my husband now. I keep in contact with one of the wives of my husband's former coworker who moved to another city, and I explained everything to her. They will allow me to stay with them until I can find somewhere for me and my kids to live since they have the room. I do have a job, so I do not rely on my husband for my income. Sorry for disappointing everyone when my husband gave me that false story and fake tears. In hindsight, even then I shouldn't have believed it. I just wanted to believe there was hope that my husband wasn't racist, but we live and learn. This will be my final update because I'm exhausted and my only focus is on my kids. If he cares so much about your ethnicity and holds such negative attitudes, then you are absolutely right to leave him. Your decision to prioritize your well-being and the well-being of your children is commendable. Remember, you deserve to be in a loving and supportive environment. Stay strong, and I wish you all the best in this new chapter of your life. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now, or you're definitely the jerk.